Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor, was responsible for creating the modern German nation-state. His unification of Germany and the formation of the German Empire in 1871 caused an imbalance of power among European nations. This imbalance of power catalyzed actions and measures taken by other nations to curb the German Empire, which was growing into a colossal power. As a result, Russia, Britain, and France formed a loose coalition capable of taking on the German Empire. These tensions between the German Empire and the coalition between Russia, Britain, and France was the driving cause that led directly to the outbreak of the First World War.
Otto von Bismarck began his political career in the Prussian legislature, where he gained a reputation as an ultra-conservative royalist. In 1851, King Frederick Wilhelm IV appointed Bismarck as Prussian representative to the German Confederation. Then, in 1862, he was appointed to the office of Minister of Prussia by King Wilhelm I. This appointment was the very first step in von Bismarck's rise to power. He would hold this office until 1890. Not long following his appointment, von Bismarck wasted no time with his foreign policy development through his advocacy of realpolitik. He would intend to gain support for the German state, thereby unifying Germany. In 1866, he defeated the Austrians in a war that resulted in the annexation of Austria's allies. Through this endeavor, von Bismarck also gained land and formed the North German Confederation. The settlement from the Congress of Vienna in 1815 resulted in the division of the previous Holy Roman Empire into 38 sovereign states. This was known as the Germanic Confederation. Continuing on his foreign policy agenda to reunify Germany under a single authority, von Bismarck waged war on France in the more well-known Franco-Prussian War of 1870. In the Encyclopedia of European Social History, Peter Stearns, a professor at George Mason University, states, Bismarck's treaties with the South German states brought them into war against France, and his work at field headquarters transformed these wartime partnerships into a lasting federation. Peter Stearns later remarks, the Prussian victory led to the formation of the Reich, a unified German empire under Prussian leadership. Officially, the German Empire was created in 1871. Wilhelm I became the first Kaiser, or emperor, and von Bismarck chancellor. Having completed his goal of unifying Germany, von Bismarck turned to achieving a strong, permeating, unified national identity. According to Stearns, to aid in this process, Bismarck modernized German administration, law, and education in harmony with the economic and technological revolution which was transforming Germany into an industrial society.
In his article, The Bismarck Debate, D.G. Williamson argues the following. Despite the current tendency to concentrate on the socio-economic background to German unification, it is impossible to ignore the dominating figure of Bismarck. He fills the largest space on the 19th century stage. He was a principal author of the German Revolution, which was to change the balance of power in Europe and ultimately led to two major wars in the first half of the 20th century. The nature of his achievements is still of immediate importance to us today.
Next, we have Peter Renow, who in the book History in Dispute argues the following. The deepest causes of World War I were embedded in changes in the European balance of power after the emergence of a unified and powerful Germany in the heart of Europe. The rapid development of Germany as a great power seemed to require an aggressive policy of unrestricted colonial and naval expansion. In 1894, France and Russia drew closer together and entered into an alliance to counter Germany. By 1902, concerns about Germany also influenced Britain to abandon its splendid isolation policy toward European affairs and to seek some kind of an agreement with France. The common fear of an expansionist Germany also moved Great Britain and Russia closer together. Thus, by 1907, Great Britain, France, and Russia had settled their rivalries and created a loosely constructed coalition capable of challenging German power. Renow comments later, multilateral attempts to restrain burgeoning German power and expansionist tendencies had dramatically increased mutual fears and suspicions, and automatically and rapidly transformed the Austro-Serbian conflict into World War I. Germany, for its part, had come to believe that it and its faithful ally, as Wilhelm II called it, Austria-Hungary, were menaced on all sides by a deliberate policy of encirclement. This strategic situation forced Germany to support the Austro-Hungarian ambitions in the Balkans almost unconditionally. W. A. Koop, in his article Bismarck and the Cartoonists, argues that the Frankfurt Lantern, of course, would have objected that Bismarck's greatest offense lay in the creation of a system of alliances to maintain peace that depended for its survival on the continued presence of a successor of Bismarckian genius, notoriously something that not even Bismarck could have guaranteed. Even so, few observers familiar with the wars of the 20th century would wish to deny that his maintenance of peace was nonetheless a remarkable achievement.
This image of Bismarck in the German newspaper Kleiderdash depicts him as an atlas towering above normal mortals, bearing on his shoulders the globe of the German Empire and foreign affairs. The caption declares, "What you achieved and wrought so splendidly stands strong and firm despite envy and dislike, guarded, as it is, by faith and honor bright." This political cartoon shows Otto von Bismarck acting as a puppet master controlling the emperors of Austria, Germany, and Russia, three major players in the First World War. Although Bismarck's rule came before the First World War, this political cartoon shows that he had a lasting influence that would eventually lead to the outbreak of the war.
Jonathan Steinberg argues, the creation of the modern unified German state in January 1871 constitutes the greatest diplomatic and political achievement of any leader of the last 2 centuries, but it was effected at a huge personal and political price.
In the book History and Dispute, Scott Varho argues, though efforts were made to confine the scope of the crisis, misperception and miscalculation of the impacts of certain decisions eventually led to all-out warfare as the only ready option available. It is important to note that this analysis applies to Germany as well. Though Germany was anxious to assert its position in the world, it does not follow that Berlin drove the escalation of the crisis toward war. Although Austrian intentions were clear and provided sufficient reason to believe that a conflict was inevitable, mobilization of Russian forces was not the only policy option available. Conflict may have been unavoidable between Austria-Hungary and Serbia, but not with Russia. Thus, Russia was also a key member that began the First World War, not just Germany.
Helmut Bohm argues in Deutschland's Weg zur Großmacht that the history of unification of Germany could no longer be written as a part of Otto von Bismarck's biography. He instead concentrated on the Prussian and Austrian tariff policies and their effect on Germany after the economic depression in 1873. For Bohm, the real turning point in the history of Bismarckian Germany came in 1879 to 1881, when Bismarck broke with the National Liberals and refounded the Reich along more conservative lines, rather than in 1871, the date associated with the unification of Germany.
There was certainly not one singular event that would lead to World War I, but the most influential event was certainly the unification of Germany by Iron Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. The creation of the German Empire in 1871 would set in line a chain of events that would change the world drastically by setting up the First World War. Germany's unification directly led to an alliance between France and Russia, and Germany's economic success resulted in Britain, France, and Russia becoming economic enemies of Germany. These attempts to restrain Germany's power dramatically transformed the conflict between Austria and Serbia into World War I. These events all begin with one man, Otto von Bismarck. There is no way of speculating on whether there would have been unification of Germany without Bismarck, but it is known for sure that it would not have taken place at the same time or in quite the same way. Bismarck's ambition would not only cause the events that began the First World War, but would set up the rise to power of Adolf Hitler in Germany, causing the Second World War, which cumulatively shapes the political and geographical landscape of the world as we know it today.